See you? Did you want? Oh, you're just working the mic.
Hi, Bhante. Not exactly sure how to phrase this question, but of the four individuals, I can't imagine how the worldling could be, or how the learner could be any more advanced than the worldling, because all the learner is somebody on the path. But it sounds like a lot of the worldlings are on the path too.
Okay,
24.
okay. Let me just see. Of course, we'll come to the learner next week, but just in advance, what's meant by the learner here, or maybe a better rendering might be trainee, or seika. Technically, the word is seika. This means one who has at least reached the path of stream entry. So it's not the word learner or trainee. It's not being used in a general sense of anybody who has undertaken the practice, but it means one whose practice has matured to the level of, we'll call it irreversible attainment. So who's definitely on the way to liberation, who can never fall back. But I'll explain it next week. Okay, Matt? Take the microphone. Thank
you. In terms of that differentiation, the person, doesn't necessarily know that they have attained that level of practice, correct? I mean, you can be practicing sincerely and be very humble and not think you've really gotten anywhere spiritually, whereas, in fact, you may have, come to the point where you have, resolved some of the taints and overcome hindrances without telling yourself, oh, I'm now a stream enterer or non-returner.
Is that a question?
That's sort of the question. I mean, how does a judge, evaluate one's own, spiritual growth on the path?
Okay, I have to say that is very, very hard to do, because it's not unusual for somebody to have like some, we call it special experience in meditation, and then they think, oh, I'm a stream enterer, or I've reached this, reached that, even I'm in Arahant.
Exactly, I've seen the nimitta or something like that, and so therefore that's a sign.
So it's very, very difficult. I don't know any fool-safe method, but generally one would, if available, consult with like an accomplished master. One doesn't know that he's reached attainment, but if he knows the way the things work, then he'll be able to ask the right questions and then at least confirm that you may have really reached it.
So it's important to have a teacher that you're
I would say,
communicating with.
I wouldn't say that you can't undertake the practice unless you have a teacher, but I would say if one thinks one has reached some level of attainment or wants to get some evaluation of one's experience, then it's good to go to consult a knowledgeable person. But I've known people in Sri Lanka, maybe elsewhere, it's not unusual for somebody to have an experience that they take to be stream entry or higher, and then to go for, actually there's the classical case, actually that's mentioned in the Visuddhimagga. This is probably the best case that I could think of. See, there was a teacher, I don't remember his name, but he had a pupil whose name was Dhammadina. Now Dhammadina reached arhatship, and he also had the superpowers, and so he used his superpower. He was living someplace else, and he thought, I wonder what my teacher's attainment is. And his teacher thought he was an arhat, but he used his superpower, Dhammadina, to look into his teacher's mind, and he saw that his teacher had not reached anything. Maybe he had reached the Well, he had reached the jhanas and also had superpowers, and he thought he was an arhat. So then Dhammadina thought, I have to help my teacher. And so he went to visit his teacher, and he said, so you've reached arhatship, haven't you? And the teacher said, yes. Then Dhammadina said, when did you reach it? And he said, 10 years ago. And then Dhammadina said, and you have the superpowers also? He said, yes. And he said, in that case, create a big bull elephant. And so the teacher used his power and created, a big bull elephant standing in front of them. And then Dhammadina said, make that elephant come charging straight at you. And so the teacher used his power and had the elephant coming from the distance, charging straight at him. And when the elephant got very close, the teacher's face turned white, and he turned around as though he were going to flee. And then Dhammadina grabbed him by the shoulder of the robe on the shoulder and said, now tell me, does an arhat have fear? And then the teacher realized, all along the last 12 years, I've been mistaken about my attainment. And then he said to Dhammadina, please help me. Then Dhammadina, his own student, gave him some instructions. He went off to practice, and then he reached the real attainment.
It just seems that you can attain the jhanic levels, but still if you haven't realized that this, if you take it as in delight in it, this is mine, this I have done, then you really haven't attained the thing. So you can really be a master of the jhanas, but still not be enlightened in a sense.
Yeah, that's the case. Definitely that's the case, yeah. And I have to say, I've known monks who think they've reached not the stage of non-returner, where the non-returner is supposed to have eliminated anger. And this particular monk I have in mind, if anybody questions his attainment of non-returnership, he gets very angry. Very angry. How can you challenge me? Who are you?
But if you've reached that stage, you don't have any karma, so you can say whatever you like, right?
So what?
You can say whatever you like since you're not going to generate karma.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to get angry. And then if you point out, but didn't you just get angry? Then he'll get still more angry. Okay, anybody else?
Is Mara supposed to have created the world?
No, definitely that's not the case in Buddhism.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, wait a minute. How did the analysis of the paragraph about Mara show up? That is, Mara is not in the text there.
Yeah.
It's in the footnote.
Yeah,
Right? What's the
Mara is just brought in by the commentary in order to identify who is this Prajapati.
Yeah, Prajapati, right?
In Sanskrit, it would be Prajapati.
Yeah. And why does the commentator hold Prajapati to be Mara?
It's not in the sense that the commentary takes Mara to be the creator of the world, because that would be completely contrary to Buddhist doctrine.
Okay.
I think the idea is that Prajapati is, literally it's the Lord or master of creation, so to speak, but not in the sense of creation out of nothing, but the Lord or master of the world.
All right. Well, there's the medieval term for Satan is often the prince of this world.
It would be similar to that.
Yeah.
Though that is, again, that's the identification by the commentary. It's not.
Okay, but there's no implication with
text at all.
There's Prajapati. Prajapati you said was sometimes held to have created the world, but not Mara, right?
The Upanishadic system, or the Vedic system, Prajapati, I think, is identified sometimes as the creator of the world.
Okay.
But
Well-
this is not accepted in Buddhism.
All right. Okay, so then the Christian equivalent of Prajapati, if Prajapati is the creator of the world, would probably be the figure called Ialdabaoth.
Called what?
Ialdabaoth. Ialdaboath. Ialdabaoth.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Okay, well, there are a number of Gnostic creation myths.
Oh, so this is within Gnosticism, not in...
That is before 381 BC. Different Christian or AD, different Christian groups held about 275 different texts to be holy, and all but 27 of them were declared heretical in 381.
Yeah.
Right, and most of the people who had those books were often killed as heretics. Okay, but the thing is that there was a series in which, of creation myths in which Ialdabaoth was occupied the place of Prajapati, and was held to be evil intrinsically because the world was held to be evil.
Is this the figure that they call the demiurge?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And anyway, that's the name. So he's more of an equivalent to Prajapati actually than to Mara. But Mara it sounds closer to the notion of the prince of this world, who is Satan.
Yeah.
Right?
Except that, correct me if I'm wrong, that at least in the form of Christianity that I'm a little bit familiar with,
Yeah.
Satan, like his task is to bring people down to hell.
Yeah.
Whereas Mara has no connection at all with hell in Buddhism. He's not interested in bringing people to hell. His task is only to prevent people from gaining liberation. If people, in the scheme of rebirths, if they continue as human beings, devas, Mara's perfectly content. Let them be devas and enjoy the sense pleasures of the deva worlds. Mara has no problem with that at all, as long as they don't get the idea into their head that there's something flawed even within the heavenly pleasures, and there's some transcendent state beyond that.
But then this is the idea, is that the world, it's the illusoriness of the world. It's Maya, right? And Mara wants people to stay in that, and that's like in the Gnostic belief that this world also is a deceit. It's a fraud perpetrated on human beings and so on, and that God is outside it. So that also is an idea of liberation. You have to get out of. You have to get out of this world. I have the sense that Gnosticism is really a descendant of Buddhism. That is, I kind of think that it probably went through Greece via Alexander's invasion of eastern India, and of course there were also at the time Hinduism was as far east as Iran and Afghanistan, or as far west as Iran and Afghanistan, and so there was influence there through Greece into Asia Minor and the Mediterranean, and then under Rome, when Rome got there, also I think there was much more connection than the Romans wanted to admit to, because they were very ethnocentric. They didn't want to be they didn't want to admit being influenced by anything, right? And so they would just ignore things like that. But I kind of think that Gnosticism is really a development of Buddhism. That's what I'm.
I don't know enough about it.
All right.
I mean, there could have been some influence flowing westward from India to Egypt and the Levant, that area.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, take the microphone, please.
My little understanding of Hinduism, Bhante, is that the God has three phases: the creator, the preserver,
Yeah.
creator Brahma, preserver
Yeah.
Vishnu, and Shiva,
Yeah.
the region. So where does Prajapati come into this?
Okay, first, like,
Because Brahma is, I thought, the creator.
yeah, those three gods of, those are the three gods of, we call it established Hinduism. That idea really developed long after the time of the Buddha. I don't know exactly when it took shape, but in the time of the Buddha, Brahma was recognized by the Brahmins, and Vishnu and Shiva might have been just local deities, village deities, small chaps. And then somehow, as Brahmanism developed, it merged with some of the village cults, the local types of religions, and then the deities of those religions became objects of intense devotion until they were ascribed with these major roles. And then some of the Hindu thinkers then had to find a way to bring together the old religion centered around Brahma with the new devotional religion centered around Vishnu, and the more austere ascetic traditions which were centered around Shiva. And so they brought them together with this concept of the Trimurti, the three lords, Brahma as being God in the aspect of creator, Vishnu as being the God in the aspect of the preserver of the universe, and Shiva as being the periodic destroyer of the universe. But Prajapati goes back to, by the time this idea of the Trimurti emerges, Prajapati is virtually forgotten. He falls into insignificance after the Vedic period. Oh, actually, yeah, his stepmother was named Prajapati, but that's quite different. It's just the same name. Yeah.
May I ask a question, Ban?
Of course.
Yeah. So, with regard to now, when Buddha says about the worldling, he conceives himself apart from the earth element.
Yeah.
So, like when a person starts actually meditating and maybe observing bodily sensations,
Yeah.
at a certain time, the bodily sensations kind of, the earth element separate out.
Yeah.
It's not me, mine,
Yeah.
but the observer, the other end,
Yeah.
there I exist.
Yeah.
So that even when you could have that same thing for the sensations, maybe even for perceptions, but this is still in the worldling domain, is that right?
I didn't quite catch the last part.
That person is still within the worldling's domain. He's still putujjana.
Yeah.
Even though practicing like that, even though the earth element, the body,
Yeah.
that person might not recognize with that.
Yeah.
As long as there's an observer remaining,
Yeah, that is, I
is
would
that
say,
still a worldling?
this is what is the mark of the way the worldling's cognitive process. The distinctive mark is that he's positing himself as a kind of self or an I existing in relation to the object. Of course, when one is doing like vipassana meditation, observing mindfully, then one gets, say, one is contemplating the body. Usually we just live sort of immersed in identification with the body. But then when one is doing maybe walking, seeing the body, picking up the foot, picking, pushing, putting down, pressing down, step after step, then turning around, or extending the arm, bringing in the arm, and so on. Then one is seeing that the body is, one is looking at the body as other, and sort of the mind that's observing is other than the body. So that's no problem. That is sort of coming to the recognition of the distinction of nama and rupa. But the problem, what makes this distinctive of the worldling, is that because of the sense of separation or distinctness, then he adheres to the idea that there is a self here, which is the observer. This is I am the one observing, and then builds up theories upon that supposition.
What you're saying is basically release yourself from your dukkha?
But please take the microphone.
So basically what you're saying is one must release himself from his dukkha?
From his
Dukkha?
dukkha.
The self-centered realization?
Yeah, okay, let us say that the aim of the practice is a non-identification with anything that arises in experience. So the problem that's being spoken about in this text is that no matter what the worldly person perceives or experiences, in some way they'll posit, I am some reality existing in relation to that object. But sort of what has to be cut through is the identification with anything as being I am, that fundamental underlying sense of I am.
Thank you.
Somebody else? Osmond, yeah.
So even after becoming a stream enterer,
Yeah.
there is still residue of I am.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that next week, in the class
Oh.
next week, yeah. Did you have a question? Okay, then I think we'll end for the day. Okay, so we have the class next week. Disregard the notice that I had sent out a few days ago. And then I'll announce on Thursday that we'll have the class. Okay, so we'll end with 3 half bows to the Buddha. Okay. I want to mention also, maybe so you reserve spaces on your calendar.